Today we are fixing airflow in this beautiful case by Phanteks Evolv X2. Like it or hate it, all of us can agree on one thing. Airflow in this case is not sufficient, especially if you want to run on the latest hardware, like 9950 X3D by AMD or any air-cooled 5090, let alone water-cooled 5090 like I have over here, but we'll talk about that in another video. If I get enough likes and subscribes. So, what are you waiting for? Just click those buttons. And for those of you who still claim in the comments that this is not the right case to do all of that, and there are other solutions on the market, and I'm stupid for using this case and not planning my stuff, you guys are wrong. I'm using this case because I want to use this particular case, and I want to improve it to the point where I can install everything I would love to have in this case. This is all by design. So, if you like to follow instruction manuals, instruction manual for this case will tell you that liquid freezer will not fit in it. But if you turn on your thing under the cap called brain, limitations become opportunities. And that's why we're here. Let's fix it.
Roman does consumer tips.
Let's start with airflow. One of the main airflow issues of this case is that it's pulling air from the bottom, pushes it up into the radiator at the top, and that's where it exhausts it. It works just like your Xbox Series X. However, unlike Series X, this thing has way too many openings. And airflow is consistently blocked by the components, such as GPUs. Look at this 5090. It will block the entire case. So you are not getting that consistent bottom-up air pressure. If you do end up having a 5090 in this case, well, you may want to consider tilting these fans slightly upwards at the back, so at least some air flows around GPU straight into your cooler. This is where Liquid Freezer 3 is definitely a good choice for this case. It's good not because of its pump, not because of its fans, but because of its radiator, as it's thicker than any one on the market. And that creates an opportunity for better heat dissipation. If you don't know what dissipation is, it's very simple. It's an exchange of heat or temperatures from one state to another. That's what radiators do. They cool down liquid inside them. But before I show you how I mounted the radiator, let's talk about its air pressure inside this case. Since you are trying to push the air from the bottom all the way up, you need to create enough pressure on the intake and enough pressure on exhaust side. And this is where original fans by Arctic suck because of its air pressure. These are average, cheapest Arctic fans you can get, and RGB version is even worse than non-RGB version. So what should you do? You should replace fans. And replace I did. I replaced them for Silent Wings Pro 4 by Be Quiet. They provide not only great silent operation, but also 5.3 millimeters of pressure at full speed and goes up to 3000 RPMs. That's really good for this fan. And that's why this year Liquid Freezer 3 Pro was introduced by Arctic, and the entire thing is pretty much identical. The pump is the same, rod is the same, but what they changed fans for really nice, not yet available fan type that provides over 6 points in air pressure. That's insane, and that's what this radiator needs, especially in this setup. Alright, so to feed the top row of fans, you need to provide enough air supply from the bottom. This is where I'm using LX120R, R for reversed, by Corsair. Beautiful fans, have tons of customization and optimization options, and these guys output 4.7 millimeters of pressure. And overall, I'm really happy about this setup. But unfortunately, taking into account this is Phanteks, all of it is not enough. This is where I decided to remove SSD tray, and I have one extra fan installed at the bottom. And this is where you see LX140R, R for reversed, by Corsair. And this guy outputs 4.1 millimeter of pressure. Super silent. I went for the white color, so it's concealed inside there. And we're not done yet with airflow. Back fan. This fan, in my particular setup with 9950 X3D chip, is pulling air inside. And the logic behind it is very simple. When I was using it in reverse, I felt like radiator is still suffocating because 9950 tends to run hot. So to prevent that, I am now pulling cooler air from the room and it goes straight into radiator and being exhausted at the top. This way, I'm making sure that temperatures are stable. And now the most important part. How do you fit in this stupid thick radiator into this stupid box? The answer is easier than you think. Let's have a look. Let's pop off this lid. As you can see, it's fitted normally. No shenanigans around it. And before I show you the radiator, there's one more thing you need to do. You need to cut off this dust filter. It's stopping your airflow. Unfortunately, Phanteks decided to go cheap way and they glued it. So use a sharp knife or blade and just cut it off. So to make sure that this radiator fits in your box, you have to do two things. First, you have to flip radiator tray so you don't have to deal with tray's edges on each side. And two, you have to create spacers that will hold the tray high enough for radiator to fit to the required height, because at the bottom you may have wires sticking out and maybe anything else in your case. And you have to gamble a little with the height. But mine fit nicely, almost level with the frame of the case. Another crucial thing is, with this particular AIO, you would have to have your tubes going this way, because Arctic's tubes are thick and they won't fit into this opening. Plus, since you're gonna lower the entire assembly a little bit, it will no longer fit. Now, how do you make those spacers to hold the tray in place? Well, first of all, do you remember how the tray is held originally? Over here, it's done by using these white caps. What I did is, I used a longer screw or a bolt. This is the stuff that usually comes with any fan kit, just like here, and we screw it in straight into the holes where these guys used to be. Luckily, the thread on those holes is identical to fan screws. It makes things super easy. Now, you don't need to do all 6 of them. 4 was more than enough. It's staying in place, nice and put. And to make sure it's staying at the height I need, I've used this rubber tube. This entire upgrade costed me like 10 bucks. But anything will do as long as it's strong enough to hold the weight of your assembly here. One thing I want you to pay attention to is rivets sticking out. You can either cut them off or just leave it, but you may need to work around them, especially on this side. That's my situation, but it's very easy to see. Like I slide it out, I lift it on the other end, and then I slowly pull it up. And that's my entire assembly with Arctic Rad. So that's how the entire thing looks like. Super easy to cut these tubes with any knife or scissors. Just have to make sure that you use ruler and you cut equally sized pieces, obviously, so that your rad stays flat. If you're curious about height of my spacers, it's like this. Right, so the rubber is roughly 2.5 centimeters, whatever that is in inches. You can go with that, you can make it slightly taller, but keep in mind, top lid still needs space, as it has this awkward design here, which could have been prevented with a flat design like many other case makers do. And that's what's preventing you from installing thick rads in the first place. All right, so let's put it all back. I'll show you how it's done as well. You grab it by one of these holes, you grab it on the other side, slowly insert it. And now you just have to make sure, it's very hard to do it all alone, you now just have to make sure that your screws are aligned like that. See how it goes straight under that white cap? That's the right way to do it. And I have to make sure that the same thing is done over here. It's now sitting nice and tight. You can even tighten up the screws to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. But since I'm using a very thick tube as a spacer, it usually doesn't go anywhere. And plus, using a rubber tube helps you with vibrations. Now, all we gotta do, just close this bad boy, and it's all set. And that's how, my friend, you install Arctic's liquid freezer into this beautiful case. Now, let me know in the comments if this was useful. I know it's super simple, but not many people can think about it, as many of you tend to follow instructions or manuals, and that's what puts you in a box in the first place. And as you probably noticed, I have a full-size water-cooled RTX 5090. What's going on here? Manual says it's impossible to install a second radiator on this setup, but somehow I did. You know why? Because manual says you cannot do that, and Roman says, would you kindly hold my tea, please? Anyhow, in the next video, I'll show you how I install this radiator, how it all works, and in a separate video, I'll show you all the flaws that this case has, or its opportunity for improvement. And some of it can be improved straight away with just a screwdriver and maybe a little bit of tape. In other cases, Phanteks need to up their game and probably contact me. Phanteks, if you're watching it, definitely contact me. Let's work on the X3 version together. I have some great ideas that you could have done. So Phanteks, reach out. You have my contact details on the channel. And on this note, Godspeed. See you in the next one.